Lauren, I want to go back to President Bush's success in bipartisanship and reaching across the aisle, because it is so rare, and we keep asking, will we get back there? The Washington Post writes this: he may be the last U.S. president who was not despised by a big chunk of the American public. Isn't that stunning? Some of that may have to do with the era in which Bush governed. He rose up through the Republican Party at a time when both parties were big tents, consisting of liberal and conservative wings, before Americans had sorted themselves out into warring ideological camps. Can we get back there?
Well,
do we want to?
Of course we do. I do think that's a little bit of a, somewhat of a rosy view of the time. I mean, let's not forget, as extraordinary as his bipartisanship was, as extraordinary as his legacy clearly is, and I feel so blessed that I got to spend time with him and Barbara, actually just a few weeks before Barbara passed away, thanks to an amazing program that he helped found called the Presidential Leadership Scholars, which he founded with his son, with President Clinton, and with the LBJ Center, focused on fostering the future civic leaders of America. It's a bipartisan organization, an extraordinary opportunity that I was privileged to be part of, another part of his legacy that hasn't been pointed to. But look, in terms of his era, I do think it's worth recalling, as extraordinary as his legacy was, the Clarence Thomas hearings were also one of the most divisive times in America, and he was willing to stick to his guns, and it was extraordinarily partisan, and he was not willing in domestic affairs, both on that and on a number of other issues. There's been a lot written in the last few days around his response, particularly during the Reagan years, to the AIDS crisis, his views on LGBT rights, which certainly evolved in his later years. But he was also part of a growing evangelical movement, and on U.S. social issues, you know, he was quite conservative. But that said, he was a relationship person, and the great lesson of Bush 41's presidency is that his relationships were sincere, that he invested in them not because he wanted something from somebody or for cold political calculus, but because he actually was really interested in knowing them. We heard extraordinary stories about this at the Bush 41 Library in College Station this summer when we got to spend time with John Sununu and with him and many of his other staffers. That kind of sincerity of relationship building, that is the piece that is missing in Washington today that I hope we can get back to. It enables deal doing. It enables compromise in ways that I think the American people want. And so if his death inspires more Americans, more American legislators to look at that as an example, to think about how they can invest in knowing one another, to advance the good of the country ahead of their own self-interest, then he'll have left an extraordinary legacy.